Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Raise the Vibe with Liz. I'm your host, Liz Peterson, and today we're getting paranormal with Kimberly Bizjak. She's the author of Ghost Stories and Hippie Shit. I met her in Salem mid-October when I went to go visit, and my friend and I were sitting at the table and at dinner, and they're like, "What do you want to do tonight?" And he comes across this tour. And I'm like, oh, a ghost hunting tour. I've always wanted to try ghost hunting. So that's how I met Kimberly. We actually didn't have a ticket. We walked up. There was a couple that didn't show up. So there were a couple spots, and we were so lucky to be able to do this. It was so fun because I've always wanted to try it since I've been like into paranormal my whole life. So a little bit about Kimberly. Kimberly is living in Salem, Massachusetts. She helps her clients take the fear out of the unknown, embrace change, and believe in the impossible. She uses a unique cauldron of sea witch tools, including astrology, mediumship, energy healing, a master's degree in education, and her personal experience sailing the world with her husband, 2 kids, and their cat. Kimberly, welcome to the show.
Thanks, dear. It was crazy that you just happened to get in that day. Like, it's just meant to be. And I remember when I saw you, I was like, "Are you from Seattle?" I don't even know why I said that. It was just like, you just look like you're from Seattle. I'm from Seattle originally, and it was pretty funny.
Yes, I thought that was so fun. Oh, I have goosebumps that would like, there's this connection, and you're like, wait, are you from Seattle? Well, and I'm like, yes. And you're like, oh, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was fun. Yeah, we hit it off straight away. And
yeah,
it
for
was a
sure.
great tour. So how did you get into doing paranormal experiences and ghost tours?
So a long time ago, well, I first moved to Massachusetts in 2009, and I started going to school for theater education. And before that, I always taught backstage theater, and I needed to get out in front of people. So I started doing these walking tours in Salem, and they were really cheesy and really terrible. And people in town would ask, like, "Doesn't anyone in town do like a real paranormal investigation with like ghost hunting things?" And I'm like, "No, no one does anything like that." So by the 10th time someone asked me, I thought, well, why not? I can do that. So yeah, back in 2010, I started my own tour company called Paranormal Salem. And that went really, really well for quite a few years. And I was on a show called My Ghost Story on A&E. And that kind of made the tour company go crazy. And then it was kind of like this, oh, I don't think I need equipment to know like who's here and why they're here. And so I kind of just started discovering that I had some mediumship abilities. And then when you work in like this life and death kind of business, this realm, um, we my husband and I were like, you know what, life is really, really short. And that's why we just decided to just sell everything we owned and bought a sailboat and spent a couple of years homeschooling the kids in Lake America until we came back to Salem. Um, so now just October weekends, we kind of bring that back and do it indoors. Like you said, you got to come. It was super fun. And we do it every single night in October. And I don't know, it's really special because people get in touch with their loved ones. I know they all want to come to Salem and they all want the spooky things and they all want something really crazy to happen. But what normally happens is that they end up talking to somebody that they love. The veil is thin, and it's just one of the coolest things we do in October. It's exhausting because we're just so busy, but man, it's special.
It really was. And you guys really did a good job in your presentation and what you offered. It was really fun. So let's talk about the experience. So we show up and you give us, a little kind of rundown of what's going to be happening. Tell us a little bit about the building, that you do it in, and your process and the tools that you use, because paranormal investigators use a bunch of tools.
Yeah. So I don't know, my husband and I sort of collected a whole bunch of things to use for this and trying to decide how many pieces of equipment each space needed. And so we've got like a plethora of K2 meters, and we have ML meter and spirit boxes. Spirit boxes are my favorite. I'll
Yes.
get into that in a sec. But Yeah, so we've got like a little variety of things to use in each space, and then I go over the history of the buildings. Do you want me to tell you the history of this space? um, so it's where well right now it's a Masonic temple, but it's got retail businesses on the main floor, and half of it's owned by what's called Gallows Hill Theater, and there's a haunted house down there during the day in the basement. But we just think it's a cool space because where the building used, or before that building stood there was a mansion there. It was called the what was it called? The Pickman Derby Mansion. And it was built for somebody named Benjamin Pickman. And then over the years, America's first millionaire lived there, Elias Derby. He owned a bunch of trade ships and opened up trade for the first time with China and the West Indies and Russia. And I guess this guy just, every street around here is named Derby Street or Derby Square, or all the boats around here. I mean, Salem used to be the biggest maritime port in the US, so it's kind of cool that we I don't know, that he used to live right there. He didn't die there though. He built another house down the street, and I guess as soon as it was done being built, I guess he only lived there for like a couple of months, and he passed away over there where Old Town Hall sits today. So yeah, I don't know. It's a cool kind of interesting space, and it's funny that we didn't know, even when I started my tour company a long time ago, I didn't know what was gonna happen. I just thought we're gonna give these people this equipment and we're gonna walk them around and we're gonna see what happens. And then it was just so interesting to me that people came up with the same names and the same information every single night without us prompting them. And same thing happened here, same names. And then we start looking things up, and we have like this list of all the different people who lived on that property. And we're always getting like, I mean, I know names are really common, right? Like I like to debunk things, and
Mhm.
I'm pretty logical. So it's like, when we get names like Benjamin and John and Paul, it's like those are all very common names, but the fact that those names do have connection with the people that used to live there. I kept the whole month, I'm always trying, like, give me a last name, just to like really solidify it. But I didn't get any last names, but man, we sure got some really interesting things happening.
Yeah, we got, let's see, John. Rick kept on
John,
coming up on
yep,
the Kate, or on the
spirit
the
box.
spirit box. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
My favorite tool also. And then also the fireman who died there during the fire. And I actually like picked up on that. I'm like, oh, did he actually die like outside of the door? And then got his name Raymond. So that was actually pretty cool. Ray Raymond,
Yeah,
which was fun. Yeah, it was a really good experience. It was really fun.
yeah, super
And then let's
cool.
talk about the tools that you use during a paranormal investigation
So, well,
and
we'll talk
why.
about spirit box, because the spirit box, that's my favorite one. So
Mhm.
it scrolls through radio stations really quickly, and it creates kind of this white noise. And it's thought that spirits can kind of use that noise to communicate. And the things that we get through that is just like amazing. We got, at one time I was like, hey, what do you think about tapping to us tourists every single night in October? And it said amusing. I was like, well, that's good. I'm glad you're having fun, because we're having fun too. But yeah, I mean, we get full sentences. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's my favorite. It's my favorite thing. So we have a couple of those. K2 meters are kind of the ghost hunter tool of choice. It's called an EMF detector, stands for elect. Wait, what is it? Electromagnetic
Electromagnetic field.
field. I was getting it confused with EVP. Electromagnetic field. It was originally made for electricians to find bad wiring, and then I guess when there was no bad wiring around and the thing just starts going off all by itself, people are like, what's happening with this thing? So it became kind of the ghost hunter tool. So it's just this little tiny machine that lights up when it picks up on something, um, you know, uh, something that's not there. And we know, based, we've been doing this now in this space for over a year now, and we know the places that it'll go off, where it's supposed to. So when I know, like, okay, let's put it on the floor right here, I know that it doesn't normally go off there. So when it does, it's kind of cool. Yeah, I don't know. We have a bunch of different types of EMF detectors, but the K2 meter is everybody's favorite because that's the one they see on Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know what else do I have. I have pendulums. Those are really neat. But nobody knows how to use a pendulum. It's like my favorite thing. I keep a pendulum in my purse all the time. And you can use it for everyday things. It's basically like a rock on a chain, but it's all sorts of different types of crystals. So you kind of just get whatever one resonates with you, and you can use it to ask questions like, show me yes and show me no, and see which way the pendulum swings, and they can ask different questions. So I don't know, people really, really love those. And I think it's fascinating that people have never heard of a pendulum before when they come see me. I don't know. So that's always really fun to get to introduce people to kind of these like really neat metaphysical tools. Dowsing rods are the same way. Like, yeah, I like all the electronic stuff, and that's what people come see. But to me, I love having people learn how to use their own intuition and use kind of the more historic divination tools,
Yeah, that one's a fun one. I use those in cleaning energy out of a house too, because you can find like the little energetic vortexes in the house.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, those are fun. And the flashlight. And I thought it was interesting, how you had the flashlight set, like not quite on, not quite off.
Yeah, it has to be that really old style mag light, because now they're all LED and they're all push button. And actually last year, one of them went missing. And it's one that I've had, for years and years and years. And I could not find another one. I'm like, we're looking all over Amazon. Like, it has to be that old style kind.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've found where we can find them on Amazon, but for a while we couldn't find them. So yeah, it's interesting. A long time ago, speaking of the flashlights, I did this, and I used to do investigations in different people's homes and businesses and stuff. That's kind of how I learned what I was doing when I started my tour company. I joined a paranormal team and learned as much as I could from them. So when we were trying the flashlight, you get it, you turn it, you twist it so that it's just kind of like that sweet spot where it's just barely on, barely off, and then the flashlight will go on and off when you're asking it questions. And one time we were in this attic somewhere in New Hampshire, I don't remember, somebody's house. And when we were asking questions, the flashlight would turn on and off every time we'd ask, like right on cue. And we listened back to the recording that we were doing, and we could hear like tapping. Like every time the flashlight would turn on and off, it's almost like it was getting tapped on. Because when I even show people how to do it, like here you can just kind of rotate it just like this, and you can tap on it and it'll go on and off. And I'm like, wow, that's really crazy.
That's cool.
I think that's what they're doing with it. Like, you ever seen the show Ghosts on BBC?
It's been a while.
It's really funny because this one ghost, he can like move things with like just one finger, and he's trying really, really hard, like, just to push.
Oh, that one. I thought you meant like one of the ghost hunting ones. No, I love that show. I actually, yes, I religiously watch that show, and it is really cute how he like moves stuff with his finger and tries really hard. Oh, you're muted. There we go. Technical
difficulties.
Awesome. Awesome. Yes, that's a cute show.
That's funny. Now that's what I picture them doing. They're trying to press something.
I didn't even realize that there were actual like places that you could go. You talk about in your book going to Taps Academy in Rhode Island. Like I had no idea that was actually even a thing.
I don't think it is anymore. I think that was something they even had, like a Taps Academy TV show for like a season. And but yeah, I did it where it wasn't filmed, but I don't even think they do it anymore. Actually, my friend Sherry is on Ghost Hunters now. So when I was on that show, My Ghost Story, we had to do these like reenactments of what happened on our tours, and Sherry was one of my background extras on that, like before she was ever on
Awesome.
Ghost Hunters. And now
Such a
I just
small
think it's
world.
hilarious. Yeah.
I love that show too. I used to watch it. My ghost
Yeah,
story.
they get good stuff on there.
Yeah. There is
Yeah,
a
that was
new
a fun
one I
experience.
found based on the two paranormal investigators that did Amityville House and the other ones. Shoot, I can't remember their names right now. I should have written it down so I could remember. And it's this 28-day process that they're
Oh,
there
I
at the
haven't heard of that.
location for 28 days. And what it does, I guess, supposedly is like the veil gets thinner and thinner and they get more information the longer that they're there. And it
Interesting.
was really well done. I watched the first season. I can't wait for the second season to come out again. It was really, I totally binge watched it yesterday.
Oh, I gotta find that. That's
I love stuff
cool.
like that. And I was reading too, like you were also into paranormal things as you were growing up. Talk a little bit about, growing up and what your experience was, because I think it all fits, right?
What's so funny is when I was writing my book, because people always say, they're like, oh, how did you get into what you're doing? I'm like, oh, I don't know. I just moved to Salem and it just happened to be that way. And then I was writing my book and I was writing, people who are like, they have intuitive abilities, they'll be like, oh, my family from generations have this. I'm like, I don't have that. So I didn't really know where it came from. And I started writing about my childhood and I'm like, oh, this makes sense. Oh, this makes sense now too. Like I didn't notice that I had all this strange things happen when I was a kid until I was writing it much, much later. So I don't know, that was crazy. But yeah, I just have all kinds of weird ghost stories from when I was a kid, like, spending the night at someone's house and, their TV and their radio going off all by itself or watching. I remember we watched like videos on how to be hypnotized and how to be more intuitive. And we're always playing with Ouija boards. And I don't know, it's just funny that, and and I grew up in the Seattle area. So now that I'm over here, it's like, wow, imagine doing those kind of things with like houses that are so much older and have so much more history than it does over in the Seattle area.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it is funny that it all kind of like comes around and like your life makes sense later on. You didn't know it at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. You were saying, yeah, I recall that you're saying, I didn't have that family history. I didn't have this, that, and the other, or these examples in my life, but it just happening. And I'm sure that a lot of our listeners are going to resonate with this. Like, okay, I was born intuitive. There was really no one else in my family that was intuitive. Okay, these things were happening. I've always been drawn to books or TV shows or movies, that have to deal with these things or metaphysical topics or paranormal things. What advice can you give, to people who have grown up that way, if they want to kind of dive in a little bit deeper and learn more about themselves?
That is an awesome question. So I think I probably said this on my tour with, I hate to call it a tour. It's kind of more an event than a tour, but I think I said this there too, that I think that being intuitive or doing mediumship or all of these things that I do now, it's not a super special thing that only certain people can do, right? And if you were like me growing up and you had to read all the books on astrology and psychic abilities and how to be psychic doing, being hypnotized by this guy on the TV, like all these silly things that you think like only little kids do. Um, there are people who are born gifted at this, and like you said, there are, like, it's passed down from generations and they just have it. Like didn't I didn't have that. So I think that there are people that they're really gifted at it, and they learn obviously, but they don't have to learn as much, I guess. And there's people who have to really, really practice, and they have to take classes, and they have to see other healers and learn their methods and that kind of thing. Like I think of it as like someone who is going to play a musical instrument, right? There are people who are born musical prodigies, and there are people that are like, I really want to do this, and they take every lesson that they possibly can and they learn how to do it, and they're fantastic at it. So yeah, I think it helps to have a little bit of natural talent at it, but it's not totally needed.
Awesome. Thanks. And then for people who want to get into or learn more, what would you suggest?
Um, yeah, classes. I learned all the things that I wanted to learn by taking classes. Well, I mean, I started out as a massage therapist, which is just it's a healing modality. And
Mhm.
aren't you a massage therapist too?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
started
so
off in massage school too, and it kind of went from there in my early 20s. Yeah.
yeah,
22, 23. Yeah.
I think you just start with whatever it is that you're called to do first. I mean, I went to massage school 22 years ago, and that was kind of my in, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, why do I know like where this person's feeling this before they even tell me, and then
Yes.
and then you're like, oh, maybe I should learn Reiki. I've heard of that before. And then you kind of take a certification course for that. And then, and then I was doing all this theater. I just love theater, and I got a bachelor's degree in sound design, and so doing sound healing seemed to make sense. So let me add that to it, and having kind of an ear for that, and then let's go get certified in this. And I think that you kind of just do what the universe is guiding you to do, and there are so many people all over the place that teach all of these different modalities and whatever you want to learn next. Um, and there's also just like little small weekend classes. I mean, there is here anyway. Yeah, there is there in Seattle too. I used to take a bunch in this place called Interspace. It's an old Rainier Brewery building a friend of mine owns.
Mhm.
But yeah, it should be like, oh, we're doing a little tarot workshop this weekend, or we're doing, I don't know, all kinds of different energy medicine workshops and all this kind of stuff. So and then yeah, books. Books are like you learn so much stuff just reading, and then it just kind of gives you a little bit of an intuitive hit on what you should be doing as you read, and go, okay, well this really resonated with me. Maybe I should Google and find a class on this. And I don't know. It's interesting. I see a lot of clients of mine who come in and want to like do what I do, and I'm like, so go do it. Like, what do you want to learn? And right now I teach astrology and I teach tuning fork therapy, and now people keep asking me how to get certified in Reiki, and I'm a Reiki master teacher. I guess I could teach it. So I'm like, okay, guys, I guess that's the next thing I'm adding to my list. That's kind of how I do it. So um, yeah, you just have to kind of follow the signs, right?
Yes. I love that. And that's, great that you pointed that out because it really is true. We learn just what we need in the moment, and then it builds and builds and builds and builds on that. And then you're getting, people are asking you, and
Right.
you have this, okay, I guess this is the next thing I'm going to do.
Like,
Life
I
really
guess
is
I
like
do
that,
this
isn't it?
now. Yeah, yeah. It's
How
interesting
it
too.
opens
You
up.
have to like, I do a lot with the chakras too, right? And like your third eye chakra is all very Hollywood, like very, it's not like, oh, I see the future. It's you're seeing the future because you're creating it yourself. And I think it starts with all your lower chakras, like your sacral chakras, where that like gut intuition comes from. And you're like, how does this feel to me? And then you're kind of like brewing these creative ideas in your sacral chakra, and then you kind of feel how it feels in your heart, and if you have, the willpower to do it. And then your third eye is like for just seeing all the signs that are kind of leading you in the right direction once you've kind of, with your energetic body kind of figure out what it is. So I think that's important too. I think you can't just see a sign for something and go, oh, that sounds cool. Like, you have to really be like, how does this feel? Like, does this intuitively kind of feel right? Um, so yeah, then you're just spending a whole bunch of money on things that don't resonate with you. And you know, spend your money on things that feel right.
Mhm. I love that really embodying it and really feeling, what's next for me, but how does this feel to me? Does it feel right for me, or is it, just what the collective is doing right now? Is this really what I should be doing? So that's great advice to get into your body and really feel, you know.
Yeah, especially when there's a lot of like trendy things out there.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then they're just like, oh yeah, we'll make this super trendy and just everyone will come do it. Make sure it feels right.
Yes, follow your heart.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. Would you like to share some stories, from your experiences? I think that would be fun.
Some stories about what? Paranormal stories or
Yes.
sailing stories, or how
Paranormal
about
stories.
both?
Yes. I know. I think it's fabulous you're sailing around. We were chatting in the beginning how my oldest, that's one of his dreams, is to just go live on a boat and sail around. I think that's fantastic. So you can start with the nautical paranormal experience if you want.
Well,
That's
I
for
think
sure.
so. When we sold everything, I kept all of my paranormal equipment like on my boat, which is so funny. But I was like, I'm gonna come across like crazy places that I'm gonna want to like do paranormal investigations at, like. So yeah, I totally brought stuff with me. So I do. I don't know. I have some stories of weird things that kind of happened along the way, but actually, I don't know. This has nothing to do with my equipment or anything. But one time we were sailing like 100 miles off the coast, like where there's nobody around, there's no other ships, and there's this like green light that kind of like, I can't even describe it. It was like it's like a shooting star, but it came up from the ocean, like almost like a flare, right?
Wow.
And we were like, "What is that?" Like, is someone in trouble? Let's go. We got to go like look on the radar screen and um, zoom in and see if we can make sure everybody's okay out there. And there was nothing. There was nobody around, and I still don't know what it is. And then I asked some other people, and other people have seen the same thing. I'm like, talk about like weird paranormal things, like in the middle of the ocean. And then I saw it again, like in the Caribbean Sea, like when we had to go straight from Panama to Florida when COVID hit because no other countries would like let us in. And yeah, it did it again. And my husband missed it, and I was like, I just thought it was like this huge green light right in front of us, and there's nothing around. So I don't know. That's pretty weird. Um,
Wow.
has not I don't think it's a ghost. I don't know. It's funny how other people have claimed to have seen this before though too. So who knows? There's strange
Oh, that's
things out
great.
there
Maybe we'll
in
have
the
a
universe.
listener who knows what it is and they can, message us
Maybe, I don't
underneath
know.
to let us
I've
know.
had so many people like message me and try to guess, and I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's very
Mhm.
cool. Let's see.
How about in
Paranormal.
Salem? There's so much in Salem, so much history. It was fantastic. We were sitting, first night I arrived, we're there eating dinner, and my friend asked if I'd picked up on anything yet. And I'm like, no, I'm off. Right. And of course, starts talking about it and things, come on. Right. So he excuses himself to the restroom. Right. And as he's gone, I'm like, oh, hi, here's this young woman, standing to my left, and she passed away kind of early from cholera. And I'm like, well, that question you asked me, before you left the table, just so happens, just bringing up the topic, just kind of opened up, kind of did a little check-in. Yeah, it's funny how that happens.
Oh,
So I'm
that's
sure that you
cool.
had that happen or have that happen a lot, living there and doing the tour company.
Yeah, for sure. I I don't see spirits. Like I'll see shadows and things, but I don't. I take that back. I've seen someone like out of the corner of my eye walking past who when I look up, they're not actually there. But I don't. There's a lot of people that come to Salem. They're like, oh my gosh, I saw this person and this is what they're wearing and all these things. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. For the most part, hear I hear things, or I'm very clairaudient and kind of just more claircognizant and just kind of, I don't know. It's it's interesting, or I'll see somebody kind of like in a window, or um I don't know. There's so many. I can't even think of like one story to tell. I know that one of the coolest things that happened was I used to see out of the corner of my eye again, like this little boy in the window of Old Town Hall. And Old Town Hall is it's like such a cool looking building. It was like they used it in Hocus Pocus, like where they had the party where actually Bette Midler and them, they never actually came to town. So the inside of it was a stage, but they used the outside of it for everybody else to like exit through. And that's where they had like the party.
Oh,
But
that's fun.
anyway, I was like, there's this little boy up here, you know, all the time. I was like, I wonder who he is. And so the only way that I could like get in there and investigate it was to just rent the whole space out and then charge people admission to come in and investigate. So that's what I did. And other paranormal groups and stuff, they all wanted to come in and do it too. So we had basically sort of like split the cost. And yeah, we were up the window that this boy that I kept seeing him in was a bathroom, which I thought, well, that was weird. I didn't expect this room to be a bathroom. But we went up there and we were asking like the boy to light up the K2 meter, and it would do it every time, like, hey, can you do it 3 times in a row? And it would go 1, 2, 3. And we put a tennis ball on the ground. We had it there for a while and it wasn't doing anything until we asked, we're like, hey, can you move the tennis ball? And it did. Like, I haven't seen like you know, like the meters are always going off, but the fact that this little boy was like playing with a ball, I just thought was one of the coolest things ever. That's something I should bring for next year for the ghost hunt is balls, and just have people play with those in the rooms and see if they can get that to move. Because just, I don't know, it feels like one of those things you sort of think could happen when you're a little kid and you don't think that it would ever, I don't know. It's like, I don't know, like that's way too magical to actually happen, and it did. So that was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. I like the one that you talk about with the brick. Can you talk a little bit about that story from your book?
Oh my goodness. Well, we'll go into, did I say anything about like so funny as I've written this book and it's been like 4 years since I've read my own book. Did I say anything about this sort of like shadowy spider figures? I don't think I mentioned it, did I?
Yeah, you did mention the one shadow figure that came down. The shadow came down that the person on the other side of the circle saw. Yeah.
Saw this. Yeah. Well, okay. So my first story in that book with that brick, I wasn't actually even there that day. So this was one of my other tour guides as we were all down there. But for a long time, things like that would happen. And it was like all of a sudden it wasn't fun energy anymore down there. You know, like I said, with the ghost hunt we do now, we say, hey, what do you think about us tourists? And we get amusing. And the words that we get are just fun. And I feel like they're totally okay for us being there. And for a few weeks, it just started getting kind of dark down there. So yeah, we would see these like, I think when I wrote it, I made it sound like all of this stuff happened in one night. It was like, you know, yeah, we'd see these sort of like shadowy, like big spiders like crawling up the walls, or it would look like a dog was over in the corner, you know. And I thought, well, it's probably a spirit of a dog, like it was a firehouse, and they always have a dog in the firehouse, you know. And I don't know, it just felt wrong. And then yeah, we'd hear like things being tossed around in like the corners, and we turn on a flashlight and there wouldn't be anything there. And yeah, the time that the brick actually came out at everybody, it happened to one of my tour guides, and I was like, you guys, we have to cleanse down there, like that's not okay. So yeah, we did like a whole cleanse, and we had some other like local psychics come down, and we made a circle and kind of helped whoever was down there cross over, carry on, kind of dissolve maybe, because I don't know what it is. I don't believe in demons, so I don't know what it was. It just was bad energy of a lot of tourists combined for a long time. I'm not really sure. But after that, we didn't have that problem anymore. And then we started getting like kind of the more lighthearted, you know, like anytime we'd be down there, I could say like there was a restaurant above our heads, and all the chairs were like put on top of the tables for the day, and I could tell people like, hey, look in the windows, there's no chairs on the ground, right? There's nobody in there. This place has been closed since 2 o'clock this afternoon, and we'd be down there at like midnight. And yeah, I could, from down below, I could say, hey, if anyone's down here, can you drag a chair across the floor? And it would go, the first time that happened, I was like, oh my gosh, that's the scariest thing ever. I have to be this like professional ghost hunter and not have like any emotion about it at all. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was nuts. It would happen most nights. Like anybody could go down and do that. So yeah, when we did that kind of cleanse and we didn't get bricks thrown at people anymore, or bricks thrown in corners, and we just kind of ended up with, I think, the spirits who wanted to be there with us again. And yeah, there's now it's owned by a brewing company now, because it used to be it's called Nick's Firehouse Restaurant, and it was only open for breakfast and lunch. So now it's a place called East Regiment Brewing Company, and they're open late. I don't think they're open till midnight. I think they're open till 10 or 11. But the basement now is filled with those, what do you call those, like tanks where they like ferment the beer.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first moved back after we did our little sailing adventure, I know like the sneaky back way to like go downstairs, and that's where like their bathrooms were. So I kind of like went down one more floor to kind of check out the basement, and the guy was like, oh, if you want to go down there, I can just show you. And so then I was telling him all the things we used to do down there, and he's like, wow, that's really crazy. And so he's like, oh yeah, you should come back later. I'll tell you all the spooky things that have been happening since you moved away. And then I didn't have a chance to go back, but so different now. It's so like, I don't know, to have it not be this old spooky basement and have all this equipment down there brewing beer. It's kind of totally different than it used to be. It's funny how much Salem's changed. It actually does not have the same kind of vibe it did when I first moved here, over 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely, and I don't know if it's just Salem's just gotten busier and we're like record breaking crowds. And I don't know if it's just the people and the energy that comes to town, but it's definitely not, I don't want to say it's not as haunted. But kind of, I think it's too busy out to kind of sit down and find some space by yourself at night.
Mm-hmm.
And
Growth,
to kind of
unfortunately,
does
that.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's definitely different. It's better. You come in the winter sometime. There's like nobody here. You can walk down Essex Street and you'll be the only person. And it's, I think it becomes more magical then.
I bet. It's a beautiful town.
Yeah, I love it. It's really cute.
Fun though that he's like, hey, come back. Let me share, the stories that it continues,
Yeah.
He continues on some level.
It's funny. I've heard other walking tours out there, like telling people about their experience in that building after taking my tour years ago. And so it's like, it's made their tour. I just think that that's pretty funny.
Oh, that is fun. That's great. Let's see. And also I had a question. What did I want to ask you? That's funny. I just went blank thinking about it. So what other, how do you feel about, because you kind of discussed it, you're in this space, you had some negativity for a couple weeks, but then everything kind of balances out. Have you ever considered, how are they feeling, when we're doing these tours? How are they feeling when we're doing these investigations? The sort of bothering spirit to communicate with us, right? How do you feel about that?
I definitely do think about that, especially after all of that happened back then. And it's funny doing it all again. I'm a lot more careful about, what's there and how it feels every night. I just figure, my husband, I think you said that my husband does this with me. He's kind of my assistant. And at the end of the night, he'll bring everybody outside, like he'll walk everybody out or let people use the restroom or whatever. And then I'm downstairs cleaning up by myself. And I just, every night I think, am I am I cool being down here alone? Because if I felt like there was something down there that I shouldn't be here alone, then I would feel like we shouldn't be doing the event, you know? So I don't know. That was kind of my gauge every night. Like, am I cool? Oh yeah, I'm totally cool. I could walk around this empty, haunted house, like a really haunted house by myself, picking up all of our equipment and cleaning up for the evening and turning off the security cameras and stuff. That if I feel okay down there and I know that the spirits there are just kind of like, hey, cool, it was a fun night. See you tomorrow.
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
that it was okay. Cause yeah, I never felt like I had to go down and stage or anything like that. We will probably right, before we start next season's events. But yeah, I figure as long as I feel like I feel I have grown a lot and know a lot more and am so much more in touch with my intuition than I used to be, that I just feel like I'm much better this time around. Really kind of using my intuition and checking in and making sure that that the spirits are okay with us being there and they're having fun too.
Right. And do you ever run into a situation where you have a desire to help someone cross over to help spirit on the other side? Because I think that's a natural progression too when you're working in the spirit realm is, that moment where you're like, hey, we've had this conversation and I know that you exist and you're here. Do you need help, crossing over?
We did do that once over there in the firehouse, that we thought we had this little girl who drowned in a pond across the street there, and that she was lonely and she wanted to find her little brother. And so we did this whole ritual to help her cross over. And it's funny because people used to say that they'd see this little girl in the window of where Turner Seafood stands today, and nobody says I see her anymore. And I was like, oh, that was me. I helped her leave. But yeah, I don't feel like that with whatever spirits are in the building. I don't know. I don't feel like they're trapped there. I think here's my thought on this is that they all kind of come from all over just to hang out and hang out with us. Especially the name Paul. That Paul, I don't know who Paul is. I can't find any Paul in any of the like historical documents of places that we're in. And it feels like Paul kind of moves around and hangs out wherever we are, almost like, I don't know, like he was some tourist and thinks it's really neat. And I don't think he wants to cross over. I think he's having a good time. So I don't know. And like I said, so much more than these few spirits that are there. We get the people who just kind of bring their loved ones with them, and um, I don't think we have a problem with their loved ones like sticking around and hanging out with us unless they're really bored and they want to. So I don't know. It's just a totally different vibe than it used to be.
Mhm.
And I don't feel like anyone's there who doesn't want to be there.
I often think about that too, because since my mother's passing, she's around. And, at first I worried, oh, did mom cross over okay? Is everything going all right? But after, working with her, having a couple of visions and that sort of thing, it's almost like she pops in with me and my sisters or to wherever she needs to be. And then
Yeah,
um so it's not really a no, this person hasn't crossed over. That's just like a visiting thing that they have that ability to come into the space, to come in and out of the space.
exactly. It's
And be
not that they
present.
haven't crossed over. They can be crossed over and come hang out with us for
Mhm.
Halloween, you know?
Yeah. And not
Yeah.
that some spirit are like, oh, I'm just gonna, hang out here because, this is my loop and I really loved my life or I loved my house or I loved this piece of property or whatever. Of course there's that too. The house that I grew up in Maryland was on the Eastern Shore, has its has its haunted life for sure. There was a lot of stuff that went on back then. And yeah, doors closing and footsteps and shadow figures and water, being turned on when nobody's in the house and, all that sort of fun stuff that really
Fun
wasn't
with
so
quotes.
fun, when you're little,
Yeah,
there is
yeah.
that, spirits that are, just hanging out
Yeah.
for one reason or another.
How it's funny, people talk about how the waterfront here has spirits, and I've never felt any spirits. I don't think I got like spirits on my boat. I just figure if salt is this nice cleansing agent and I am literally floating surrounded in salt water, maybe they're just like, no, you can't hang out. But yeah, I get a lot of people say that they'll see, you know, see a spirit of an old privateer like walking the wharf. I don't know why. I don't know, just because this is my home and I'm like, no, you're not allowed. Or I don't know. It's just interesting. Yeah, I don't like to sleep somewhere where there's ghosts. Like a lot of people will want to go stay at some haunted hotel, and I'm like, no, I'll go do all the paranormal things during the day. But when I go back and I want to sleep somewhere, there cannot be ghosts. Like I'm not gonna be waking up in the middle of the night with somebody standing at the foot of my bed or something like that. You know, I swear I draw the line.
I've been tempted a couple times. There's a couple places they're like, oh, that's the most haunted in Nevada or over here. And then I think back to my childhood, it's like, no, that's not fun. I
Yeah.
get woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning all the time as it is, to like go somewhere and like invited in, like you said, there's a person standing at the foot of the bed and they can also like affect your dreams.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's a whole nother level that you're not understanding, like energy draining from your body or coming into your dreams or waking you up at random times in the middle of the night or whatever. I kind of feel the same way around that too. Would I want to invite it in? Maybe not sleep there. Maybe I'll go visit, have some tea and like, can I walk around? But yeah, maybe not sleep there. And kudos to the people who did that experiment that I watched on TV yesterday where they were sleeping in the space like nonstop for 28 days.
Yeah, I
Woo!
couldn't do that. That's like a whole lot of note. I mean, when
Yeah.
we were sailing and I saw that like weird green light, like I didn't, it was weird, like it was creepy. I was like, we're out here. I mean, it's already creepy. We're like out in the middle of the ocean and there's nothing around and I'm
Yeah.
like out here with my kids, but I don't know, it was a weird feeling like when I'm trying to go to sleep that night after seeing that those couple of times, you know?
Yeah. The unknown.
Yeah, it's like, "Ugh, aliens are out here. I don't know."
Popping up out of the water. Or
Yeah,
underground city or underwater cities.
yeah, it's really bizarre.
Don't want to start any conspiracy theories.
I know.
So where do you think your most haunted spot has been, over your time of doing investigations and why?
Um, I get that so much. I I don't think there's one place that like wins, you know? Um, yeah, I don't. That's a hard question to answer. I just think Salem itself is just like, there's spirits everywhere. Um, I will say though that I feel like the entirety of the East Coast is more haunted than the West Coast, and we when we moved back to Seattle for a little bit, I was doing a very similar event to what I do here at Merchants Cafe, which is Seattle's first restaurant, which is like the 1800s. Like there's
Hmm.
houses here that are built in the 1600s, and
Yes.
then don't get me started on like going to Europe, Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's definitely the hauntings we have here are definitely different. More of it happening over here than over there.
Mhm. Yes.
But yeah, as far as like really haunted places, I don't know. I also like to me when I feel like, oh wow, there's a lot of spirits here, it's normally not places that are, to like that a place that everyone knows it's haunted. It's like an antique shop or I feel like antique shops are most haunted places in general. It's like I don't know what it is. Like all these people have all of these things there and maybe they're attached to these things. But I always feel it in antique shops. And then I don't know, the only other place I can think of that I was like, wow, this place is totally haunted was the Star of India in San Diego, that big ship.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I don't know. I just walked into that place and I was like, holy cow, this is the most haunted place I've ever been in. I don't
It
know
is.
what
I
it is
agree.
about that place, but I don't know if they do ghost hunting there. I know they do it in the Queen Mary, and I've been
Mhm.
there, and it's like, oh yeah, this place is haunted, but something about the Star of India.
I think they had that
Really
on a show
stuck.
recently. where they
Did they?
walked through there. Yeah, they had paranormal team, go in and sort of do their thing. And I don't know if they do tours at night or not, just the tours during the day.
Huh, I should
Yeah.
Google it. Because yeah, I
Mhm.
know they do have the Queen Mary, but that didn't feel as haunted as Star of India to me.
So we'll put that on our list. Star of
Yeah, I'm
India.
gonna Google that and
So
find
next
out what
time we're
happened
down in
there.
San Diego, right? And I agree that with the antique stores too, because a lot of these objects people don't understand hold residual energy from the owner, especially
Yeah,
like they cherish this item and it was in their house and, it holds the energy of their house, holds the energy of the person, holds the energy of what happened in their relationships, in their environment. Yeah. And then you put all of these items together and it's like, the energy
yeah,
seems going
definitely.
up. Yeah. And then
Yeah,
the things
it
get
almost
can
feels
be attached to
uncomfortable
it.
in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Different than
Yeah,
like,
cleanse, and that's all my rule of thumb too. Cleanse it when you bring it home,
yes,
even like when you're going, because I'm a thrifter, so
yeah, me too.
wash the clothes when you get home, smudge the objects when you get home, stick them in the dishwasher, if it's something, yeah, because it's holding the residual energy of the person before.
Yeah, definitely.
So
I get almost
cleanse
everything in
that
thrift
out.
stores that I'm like, we have to not just wash them, but we actually have to like stage them and all the things just to make sure when you bring it home. Cause yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. Stuff is weird.
Yes. Holds energy of our environment, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Any other stories that you would like to finish up with today that, kind of top of mind that you would like to share with our audience before we go?
I don't know. I should have had some more things written down to share. I don't know. It's just I I kind of only do the paranormal thing in October these days. So
Mhm.
now it's just back to normal life and just back to seeing my regular clients and like I said, I do astrology and Reiki and sound healing and yeah, I mean I do some mediumship, but it's not anything like it is in October.
Right.
We were doing this for weekends in the summer this past year too, but it wasn't I don't know if it was busy enough for us to do it again this summer. It may be
Mhm.
better to just have my summer weekends without having that in there. But um yeah, I don't know. I don't have any big crazy stories or anything. That's um it was just a really, really fun
That was a fun
October, you
October.
know.
That was fun. And so if anybody goes to Salem, they can reach out to you for, healings or astrology or different things. How can people reach you, Kimberly?
So my website, I kind of have like a weird website because we started off as a blog and a YouTube for our sailing adventures. And
Hmm.
so it's lifeoffthedeepend.com. Um, and then yeah, that kind of turned into like life coaching, especially during COVID, because people were like, wait, you already homeschool and you already live with your family 24/7 and in this small space. And so yeah, that so it kind of like merged. And so now the portion of like my services when I opened up my new space in Salem when COVID kind of died down is it's called Celestial Navigation, Astrology and Wellness. So but you can also get to that services tab on celestialnavigationastrology.com. So I don't know, kind of like I got a weird site. I gotta figure out how this makes sense now that we're not really sailing. We still live aboard. We'll probably go sailing again once our kids are done with school, but for now we're happy just kind of here at the marina in Salem.
Nice.
Yeah.
Any little pearl of wisdom you would like to leave our listeners with today?
Pearl of wisdom. Um, yeah, I think that it's important to know, and this has been coming up a lot with a lot of my clients lately, that you don't need a medium to talk to your own family members. Um, I do this. I tell people that what you can do is like close your eyes, and you can do like a little meditation first, and whether that means you're just sitting really still and breathing, or you can listen to some guided meditation if you want. But then when you're done and you feel like you're really well grounded and you're kind of in that meditative state, you just imagine that your loved ones, that's that whoever it is you want to talk to, is sitting across from you in a chair. like as you're there with your eyes closed. And it's hard to do, especially when you haven't done it before and you're like trying really hard to picture these people kind of like appearing in this chair. And it's almost like what I said earlier, how I see people kind of out of the corner of my eye, and then once you look straight at them, they're not there anymore. So when you're trying to do this and you're trying to see like the person that you really want to talk to, it is hard to kind of imagine that they're there. But do the best you can, and it takes practice. But there's nothing that says you can only do this one time and you can never try again. Do it anytime you want. And then you can ask them questions, or just say hi, or ask them what they have to tell you. And a lot of times it's not going to be like you picked up the phone and you're talking to them. It's going to be like a little feeling you get, or a little flash of an image, and then you're like racking your brain going, why did I just see that? What does that mean? So it's like a little bit of a puzzle. You have to be a little bit of a detective and kind of start figuring it out. And then the more you do it, you can keep like a mediumship journal and go, okay, well, today I did this, and I was, trying to talk to my mom, and I saw a butterfly, and, you write that down, and then you're like, okay, well, what does that mean? Like, oh, I'm spreading my wings. She's really proud of me that I'm doing what I've always wanted to do. Or, you can kind of start interpreting it that way. And, and then the more you do it, the better you get at it. And then you can start doing it for other people if you wanted to, and then teach them how to do it. But yeah, you don't need to see a medium. You can I always like to tell people, like, what I do, I'm like teaching people how to heal themselves. I'm not healing you. I'm just clearing it all out and kind of telling you what I see. As especially with astrology, like astrology gives you questions. It doesn't give you answers, and then it's kind of the here's your path. Here, choose what you want to do with it, So I don't know. That's just what I'd say is especially when the veil's thin. Oh, and the veil's thin
Yes.
too, not just in October, but the other wheel of the year, right? It'll do that in springtime too.
Yeah.
So people don't think about it happens twice a year, not just that one time.
Mhm. Awesome. Thanks, Kimberly. That was lovely. I
You're
love
welcome.
Great. Thanks. This has been a fun conversation. I've really enjoyed having you on, and thanks for the experience in Salem. And yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it was
been
super
a joy
nice
to
to
have you
meet
on. A
you.
great little conversation.
Thanks.
And everybody look up Kimberly if you're ever in Salem. And if you want to check out her stories, her book is Ghost Stories and Hippie Shit. It's a really fun collection of little stories and hippie things throughout the whole book, so metaphysical topics. So that's really fun. And thank you everyone for joining me. My name is Liz Peterson, and this is Raise the Vibe with Liz. You can find me on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Raise the Vibe with Liz. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And I am also looking for sponsorship. So if you're interested, please contact me at liz@liz'shealingtouch.com. And if you want to find out more, see my website at Liz's Healing Touch. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kimberly, for joining me today. And remember
Thank
to get
you.
out there and raise the vibe, everybody. Thank you.